Welcome to In the News, and today we have a special guest, Angie Enyedi, who's from the National Weather Service. Did I get it close?
You're right on, Carl.
Oh, good. So, it's got to be an interesting job. Tell us a little bit about the National Weather Service and what you do.
Well, it is a privilege to be part of the National Weather Service. We're the behind-the-scenes meteorologist, and our core duty is to issue life-saving watches and warnings for the protection of life and property. So the severe thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings, hurricane warnings that you see scroll across your TV, that's actually coming from your local National Weather Service offices.
Ah. So you never stand in front of a map and go with the TV cameras rolling and pointing out different storms and that sort of thing.
No.
But you do provide the information to those people
correct.
that do.
The media is an important partner for us. We're kind of the, and I say this term endearingly, kind of the weather weenies, weather nerds behind the scenes. That's what I call us, weather weenies.
Yeah,
so we're the ones that
we're
weather scientists. That's much more politically correct, I should say. So we're the ones that are actually interpreting the model data. We're gathering the surface observation data. We're the ones that are putting out the official products like the warnings and the watches. But the TV meteorologists serve as a liaison for us because they take kind of our technical jargon and they interpret it so that the general public understands it. So they're an important partner for us. But no, we're not the ones who are standing in front of the weather map.
Well, since you mentioned warnings and watches, go ahead and explain. A lot of people get that confused because you are the people who initiate the weather warnings that come across the TV and radio.
Correct. Yes, correct. There's a very important distinction that needs to be made between a weather watch and a weather warning. And most common for Flagler County, you'll hear thunderstorm watches, tornado watches, or even hurricane watches or flood watches. And basically a watch is when conditions are favorable for severe weather to form. It doesn't mean that there's a hurricane coming at you and it's going to be there in 12 hours, or it doesn't mean there's a severe thunderstorm on top of you, take shelter now. A watch just means keep abreast of the weather situation, the ingredients are coming together where severe weather may form. Now, a warning, there's a big difference. A warning means that if you're in the path of a storm with a warning on it, like a severe thunderstorm warning or a tornado warning, you need to seek shelter immediately. So watch, keep your eyes to the sky. A warning means take action immediately.
So while we're talking about bad storms, and particularly tornadoes, is there a tornado season in Florida?
Yes, yes, you can pretty much say that. We can have tornadoes any time of year in Florida, but usually we see our peak. We have a couple distinct peak seasons, and we're in the midst of one right now. We're in tornado season right now. Typically from February through April is our time frame when we look for those strong cold fronts to come down from the north, and it mixes with warm air that's trying to creep up from the south, and that clashing of air masses over our area during the transitional months, like from getting into from winter to spring, or even from summer into fall, is when we have that drastic clashing of air masses, and that's favorable for strong tornadoes to develop. Now, another season that we have for tornadoes to form is during the warm season, when we'd be looking for hurricane activity. And if we get tropical storms or hurricanes that start to impinge on us, that's another tornado generator. And typically the good news with those type of tornadoes that are associated with tropical storms and hurricanes is that they're usually pretty weak. They're like F0s or F1s, which is on the low end scale.
You talk just like a weather forecaster. Yeah, all bells and whistles. I grew up in the Midwest, and it seemed to me when we had a twister in the Midwest, it flattened everything in its path. Here, occasionally we get some fairly strong tornadoes, but for the most part we get not as strong.
Correct.
They don't seem to be the house flattening. I mean, they'll do damage to, say, a mobile home or a barn or something like that, but they really don't clear the landscape like the Midwestern tornadoes do.
We can and have had very strong tornadoes. Tornadoes are ranked on how strong the wind speeds are. So F0 is a weaker tornado, but weak would be 60 to 70 mile an hour winds, still enough to do some damage. And then you can have F5s, which is at the higher end of the scale, and those are with wind speeds over 200 miles an hour. So we have had F4s in the state. We recently had F3s during the Groundhog's Day tornado outbreak. So we can't have the strong tornadoes.
New Smyrna?
It went through like Lake Mary, Lady Mac area. I think it was that part. So there were several strong cells being thunderstorms that came across the area, and those were producing F3 tornadoes. So we can have the stronger tornadoes in our area, but thankfully it's not as common as it is from where you grew up. Now, the reason you had them so much more frequently where you grew up is that's where you're having the clashing of cold Canadian air merging with warm, moist Gulf air.
Right.
Thankfully for us, most of the time Florida is a very tropical environment, so we're dominated by that moist tropical air, warm, moist tropical air. But it's during those transition months when the cold fronts come down and the warm air is trying to creep up is when we get that clashing of air masses. So over the central part of the United States, that's a more frequent occurrence than when it is over the state of Florida.
As I understand it, part of your assignment, in fact, a new part of your assignment will be coming down here to help us out with specific weather when we're dealing with fires and when we're dealing with hurricanes.
Yes, we're very excited about the direction that the Weather Service is going. We're still going to be providing daily forecast information when severe weather is not going on. Even when it's going on, we still make sure our forecast is as up to date as possible. But the Weather Service is trending towards a new direction in terms of decision support services for emergency responders, emergency management agencies, fire agencies. So when they're out there working in an event such as a wildfire or even responding to some kind of accident, there will be a Weather Service meteorologist available 24/7 for them to call up and get a spot forecast. If they need weather conditions at a fire, need wind information, relative humidity information to fight the fire. If there's a large event like an oncoming hurricane or even a prolonged wildfire like what we had back in 1998 in the county, you will have the ability to request a National Service incident meteorologist is what we're going to be called. So we can come on site and we can work with emergency response personnel face to face, giving them the critical weather information they need to respond to the incident.
In the past, I've talked to people on the phone, in phone calls, but this is great. If you're going to be down here in the Emergency Operations Center, calling it day by day, that's great.
Yes, we're excited about that. That face-to-face interaction, you can give them the information they need at the time immediately so they can respond in the most proactive way they can.
Tell us a little bit about Storm Ready. And I understand that Flagler County was one of the first.
That's correct.
Probably had a lot to do with Mr. Bob Pickering.
Mr. Bob Pickering is quite the weather enthusiast in Flagler County, and we are so excited to have him. I know you guys are excited to have him as part of your county's team, but we consider him part of the National Weather Service team too. Bob and amongst other county officials were instrumental in making Flagler County the first storm-ready county in the state of Florida. And what Storm Ready is it's a nationwide program that's conducted by the National Weather Service, and we work with local communities such as Flagler County on trying to enhance their severe weather preparedness plans as well as their severe weather communication plans. Now, in terms of preparedness, Flagler is always at the forefront of organizing community talks in terms of educating its citizens as well as its emergency responders for inclement weather and how to react proactively to such threats. They do many outreach events throughout the community showing customers or showing the citizens where they can get weather information, which also includes how to respond correctly to different weather threats. In terms of communication, the communication aspect of Storm Ready is such that we ensure that Flagler can receive our warnings, but also disseminate them to the appropriate personnel, such as emergency responders, but also the citizens. And Flagler County has various ways in which they do that. Recently, they've implemented Code Red, which actually sends out the warning information to citizens that registered for their Code Red database. So the citizens will be called if they're in the path of a storm with a tornado warning on it. So Flagler is always staying current with ways to proactively communicate severe weather threats to their community, and the Storm Ready program recognizes that. So Flagler first became Storm Ready, I think it was 1999, and every 3 years they go through the check process and improve their warning reception plan and warning dissemination plan, and the Weather Service recognizes that. So we are proud to make Flagler County Storm Ready for another 3 years.
Well, good. As I understand it, Bob has got quite a network of people out there that report the weather and watch for him and get a call in like rainfall and observations of weather.
Correct. We call those storm spotters.
Right.
And I have the privilege of working with Bob several times a year. Myself or another one of my coworkers from the Weather Service will come down and we'll tag team with Bob Pickering, and we will conduct storm spotter classes. And basically these classes are They're free and very informal, and what we do from the Weather Service end is we come down and we teach about local severe weather threats, how to identify using cloud formations, possibly severe storms, but also teach folks how to get weather forecast information to know if severe storms might be expected in their area on that day, so they can kind of keep an eye to the sky, if you will. But also as a storm spotter, we ask that the folks call in their weather reports to us, because the Weather Service, we have surface observation equipment, we have satellite data, we have radar data, but nothing is more important to us when we're working a severe weather desk than a ground truth report from somebody we can rely on, somebody who says, Angie, yes, I am having quarter-size hail, or yes, we do have a swath of trees that have been blown down by strong winds, or yes, I do see a funnel cloud forming. So that's what storm spotters do. So it's definitely a two-way communication thing. They help give us an idea of what's actually reaching the ground, and in turn we can help provide better warning services.
And they call the classes Skywarn, I believe?
Skywarn Storm Spotter Program, correct.
And it's free?
It's free, it's fun. We always make it fun, Bob. And it's casual, and we get to talk about the weather for a couple hours.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Let's go back to a little bit back to what you do. Since I have a weather forecaster right in front of me, and I understand we're in between El Nino and El Niña, what does it look like for the hurricane season?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Carl, because a lot of folks focus on, oh, well, El Nino, that means a below normal year. La Nina means above normal year in terms of hurricane activity. We don't want folks to focus on the number of storms that could be possible in any one season. We want everybody to prepare every year as if this could be the season where you're impacted by that one storm. So a lot of folks will stock their emergency supply kits based on the number of storms that are predicted.
Right.
And we in the emergency services community like to say prepare every year like this was going to be your year. Like 1992 Hurricane Andrew, that year was predicted to be a low occurrence of hurricanes in the Atlantic Ocean, and indeed there was very few hurricanes that happened in the Atlantic Ocean, but what was the one storm that everybody remembers from 1992? That's Category 5 Hurricane Andrew. Over the past couple years we've had an above normal activity of hurricanes and tropical storms of the Atlantic, but thankfully most of them have remained offshore. So we don't really have any specific storms that we can recall recently.
As Troy Harper, our emergency services person, says, it's the storm that's important is the one that comes to you.
That's exactly right. Mr. Harper's got that nailed on the head. That's correct. So we like to encourage folks to prepare every year as if this could be our year.
Well, what about, we're in the middle of fire season. I mean, we've had a couple fairly good-sized fires already. Flagler County is known for its ability to come up with a wildfire or two, 1985 for one and 1998, where we have a lot of houses that are interfaced with the pine woods and that sort of thing. What are we looking at for the season ahead here in the next couple of months for drought and rainfall?
Well, we were optimistic a couple weeks ago because we got a pretty good soaking rain event over several days. Rainfall over several days is good instead of one big dosing of rain, and we got that with we had a stalled front kind of hang up over the area, and when frontal boundaries stall over the area, they serve as a focus for showers and storms to develop. So you get extended periods of rainfall. That's good. The thing that has been bad that's happened since that good rainfall is that we've had several freezes inland areas, and the freezes kill the vegetation, and the vegetation becomes debris and fire fuel. So right now, we could, and we're already having it. Forestry is trying to be very proactive with burning areas, doing controlled burns to try to get rid of some of that additional debris that has been caused by these late season frost and freezes. So for the next couple weeks, it definitely bears watching the fire situation over the area. We have the coldest weather of the season has actually occurred the winter season has occurred over the past couple weeks. So with that being said, we should continue to see a gradual warm-up as we go into spring, but with the warmer temperatures and the recent ground fuels from the late season frost and freezes, it can make for a tricky fire weather season here over the next couple months. Okay.
Well, is any particular problems with forecasting weather in northeast Florida, this area? Is there little catches? I notice sometimes when we get a northeaster, they don't go away like everybody thinks they're going to go. They kind of stay and keep generating weather, and people go, How come it's lasting so long?
Right. One of the greatest challenges we have in our area, the nor'easters, like you say, they're not the true nor'easters like people associate up where Bob Pickering's from, up in the New England area. Not these big areas of low pressure that bottom out offshore and bring heavy
like what's
rain
going on with the snow up north now.
Exactly. That's not true, but we call them local nor'easters. That's basically, when we say a nor'easter, we basically mean an extended period of wind flow that's coming in from the northeast. And so this northeast wind, usually there's a tight pressure gradient, and the tighter the pressure gradient is over the area, the stronger the winds are going to be. So when we have local nor'easters develop, we can have a prolonged period of cool northeast flow, which can bring over Flagler County strong onshore winds, 20, 30 miles an hour with higher gusts, low cloud cover, off and on showers and sprinkles.
Lots of beach erosion.
And it can also, I was going to get at, and it's very significant for marine interest because it can cause a lot of beach erosion, high rip current risk, generate elevated seas, and of course winds offshore of the coastal waters. Another big challenge we have in terms of the forecasting for our area is when we're expecting severe weather, especially if it's an organized squall line that's coming in from the west out ahead of a cold front. And given the shape of the Florida Peninsula, if we have a cold front, I wish I had my weather map here, but say we have a cold front, my arm's going to be the cold front coming down from the northwest. The cold front starts to come into northeast Florida. Well, thunderstorms need 3 key ingredients to develop. They need moisture, they need instability, and they need forcing. And the forcing comes in terms of the cold front. And what happens is, for our areas, we get something called the Great Split, which happens. So if we have this really organized squall line that's ripping across Alabama and the Florida Panhandle, it's producing long-lived tornadoes. And as that cold front, that squall line starts to edge towards northeast Florida, a lot of the instability, which is the juice and the fuel that generates the thunderstorms, it stays over the warmer Gulf of Mexico. Whereas the dynamics and all that lift and the strong winds lift off to the northeast. So we have a split in the ingredients as the front and as the thunderstorms edge towards our area, and this line of thunderstorms that we've been preparing for, that we've been telling the public about, weakens and it dies off by the time it gets to us. And which is, in the broad sense, a good thing because we're not having severe weather, but at the same time it can be very frustrating because from the weather services end, we never want to cry wolf. Our job is to let people know that, hey, there's a threat there. But as the squall line comes towards us, it will just sometimes start to fizzle. Now, the ones that don't fizzle are the ones that we remember, from coming through and producing severe weather. So squall lines holding together and reaching our areas, a true squall line, that's always a forecast challenge, to see if the ingredients to support them and to produce organized severe weather, if they hold together, because a lot of times they split.
I will never forget, as a youngster in Green Bay, Wisconsin, where I grew up, forecaster came on the air after we'd had a big snowfall, and the forecaster came on the air and said, well, we got 2.5 inches of partly cloudy on the ground. It's the risk, I guess, of being a weather forecaster.
Yes,
it's just,
yes. My own mother told me, honey, you're going into the right profession because nobody expects you to be right. Thanks, Mom. But no, we do the best we can with the tools that we have, just like firefighters and emergency response personnel. Their tools are the water they have to extinguish the fire, or the amount of people they have to respond. Our tools as meteorologists are the forecast models and the data that we have. We have one site in all of Flagler County that actually gives us surface observation data on a 24-hour basis, and sometimes that goes back, and that's at the Flagler County Airport.
The new AWAS
The
station.
new AWAS site, yes, very good. So for the whole county, that's the site that we have. So we don't really have an expansive area of surface observation equipment, but that's one of our tools. Radar, satellite data, surface observation equipment, those are our tools. And our forecasts are only going to be as good as our tools are, or as good as the local expertise in the office. And we have had forecasters at the Weather Service office in Jacksonville for, they've spent I've almost spent my whole career there, about 13 years, but folks that have been there 20, 30 years. So they are local weather experts that know the little intricacies of our weather regimes here. So we do the best we can, but we also always want to err on the side of caution. If there's a severe weather threat, if we see a thunderstorm and we can see the low levels of the storm are rotating and getting stronger, which may be indicative of a tornado touchdown, we are going to issue a tornado warning because we'd rather folks be able to prepare for the worst.
So you recommend that we have more eyes on the ground, spotters, trained
Absolutely.
spotters.
Trained storm spotters are always an asset. Not only do they help us out in the Weather Service community, but they're also wonderful reports for local emergency management to receive, because emergency management and emergency responders will know if there's an area that may be susceptible where people may need to get help. One thing that we're going to be doing here, hopefully with the Weather Service office here, other Weather Service offices are doing it, is online spotter training, where folks don't even have to leave the comfort of their home, but they'll be able to dial in by a number and be able to log into a computer interface that they'll see at my work. So I'll be sitting there at my work and people will be at home very comfortable, and we'll talk about the weather for about an hour, and that's another way to help educate the public. So there's several different ways you can get weather training for Skywarn purposes.
All right. Well, thank you for all the wonderful information you've provided.
You're welcome.
Great job. And we're really glad to have you help us out, particularly during emergencies. It will be very helpful. And I'd like to thank you out there for watching, and please join us again for In the News.